When shopping for new wheels for your vehicle, there's a lot of things you have to consider. I mean, obviously the first one is to pick out a wheel that you like the way it looks. Now, once you've done that, you have to find out if that wheel is going to fit your vehicle. And there's a lot of numbers that go along with that. You have bolt pattern, you have backspace, and you have the physical size of the wheel. Well, today we're going to show you what all those numbers mean and also discuss why some wheels cost more than others. The first thing we're going to discuss is the actual wheel size and how to measure. Now this wheel, if we know, for example, this is a 20 by 11 inch wheel. Now what do those numbers mean? Is that the actual diameter and the actual width? Well, not really. They're the measured width and measured diameter. The actual size will be a little bit bigger because it depends on where you actually take your measurement from. And we're going to show you right now the proper way to measure your wheel. So we'll start by measuring the width of the wheel. If you look, we measure this wheel from edge to edge. And you can see it comes out at 12 inches. Well, it's not a 12-inch wheel, it's an 11-inch wheel. Now, why is it that way? Because the measurement is actually from bead to bead of where the tire sits. So the proper measurement is to get inside the bead, and there you can see it's an 11-inch wheel. Now, measuring the diameter of the wheel, it's going to be the same deal. If you measure the outside diameter of the wheel, you can see it's almost 21.5 inches. Now, again, we know it's a 20-inch wheel, because the proper measurement is going to be at the bead. Now here you can't see it, so you kind of have to estimate. If you see, if we go to the inside edge on both sides, it's right at 20 inches. Next thing we're going to talk about is bolt pattern. Now bolt pattern is basically the design of the holes that either your wheel studs or your wheel bolts are going to go through. Now these numbers are always going to be 4, 5, 6, 8, whatever, by something else. Now this wheel here is going to be 5 by 4.5. Now these measurements also come in metric. It might be 5 by 113, 5 by 108, but all the measurements mean is basically the spacing between the lugs. Now, whether you have an even number or odd number, there's actually two different ways to measure. We'll start by showing you on this wheel how to measure an odd number, and next we'll show you an even. Now, the first number is how many lug holes you have. So this obviously is a 5-lug wheel, so it's going to be 5 by something. Now, a 5-lug wheel with an odd amount of lugs, you're going to measure from the top of the upper hole to the middle of one of the bottom holes. So put it at the top, go down to the middle, and you can see 4.5 inches. So this is a 5 by 4.5 wheel. Now we have this old Fox body wheel here. Now if you're looking at a 4-lug, 6-lug, 8-lug, any wheel with an even amount of lugs, you're gonna measure from dead center in the bolt hole to dead center in the bolt hole. You can see that's 4 by 4.25, also the same as 4 by 108. Okay, so we discussed how to measure your size of your wheel, we discussed bolt pattern. Now we're gonna get into the two most confusing terms when it comes to wheels, and that is backspace and offset. A lot of people don't understand the difference and actually think it might be the same measurement, but they really aren't. So the first thing we're gonna do is show you how to measure backspacing. So what is backspace? Backspacing is the distance from the back of the center of the wheel, the hub of the wheel, to the actual back surface of the wheel. Now how you measure that is you grab your tape measure. You need something straight across the back face of the wheel. You're gonna put your tape measure on the hub of the wheel and then put it right up against it, and that's how you get the measurement. Now this is right at about 8 inches. I actually know this wheel is 7.97. Basically, that's where you get the measurement for backspace. So again, the back of the hub of the wheel to the back surface of the wheel is your backspacing. Okay, so we have our backspacing. We know it's 7.97 inches. Now we're going to use that backspacing number to help us figure out what our offset is. Now to even confuse you even further, backspacing is almost always in inches, where offset is going to be in millimeters. And you also have a positive or negative offset. We'll get to that in a minute. But the first thing we have to do to measure our offset is to measure the actual width of the wheel. So you want to figure, you don't want to use the 11, you want to use the actual width physically of the wheel, which is right at 12 inches. So to figure out our offset, we basically have to cut that number in half. So being that it's 12 inches makes it real easy. We know 6 inches will be our dead center. So now we have to do the math. We know we have a 7.97 backspace. We know the middle of the wheel is 6 inches. So the distance from the 6 inches to the 7.97 will be 1.97 inches. And if we convert that, that comes out to 50 millimeters. So our offset is 50 millimeters. Now how do we determine if it's a negative or a positive offset? Well, basically, the difference is where the hub is. So if you figure where your center of your wheel is, if the hub is towards the face, that's a positive offset. If it's towards the back of the wheel, that's going to be a negative offset. So in our case, the middle of the wheel is 6 inches, and our back spacing is 7.97, which means the hub is further towards the face of the wheel, which will be a positive 50mm offset. All right, so we know the width of our wheel, we know the diameter of the wheel, we know the bolt pattern, and now we know the back space and offset. Now, what do you do with these numbers? Now, obviously, the diameter and the width has a lot to do with how it's going to fit in your wheel well. If you don't have a large wheel well, you're obviously not going to fit a large wheel in there. Backspace and offset is going to be a lot to do with the fitment and how it actually tucks on the car. Now, today's modern cars have much larger brakes, so most of those wheels are going to have a lot of backspace and a positive offset, so the large brake can fit inside the wheel and the wheel will tuck inside the fender well. Now, trucks are a little bit different. A lot of truck owners actually want less backspace and sometimes even a negative offset, because the brakes on trucks are usually going to be smaller and they want those wheels to stick out further to give the wheels a more aggressive look on the truck. Next, we're going to discuss wheel materials and why some wheels might cost more than others. Now, back in the day, you even had wood wheels, but today there's basically two different versions. You've got steel wheels and you have aluminum alloy wheels. And today, most wheels are actually going to be aluminum, but steel wheels are still around and very popular on your classic cars. Now, the benefit of a steel wheel, they're cheap to make and they're pretty strong. The cons, they're kind of ugly, which is why they usually have wheel covers on them, and they're definitely on the heavy side. Today, like I said, aluminum wheels have become far more popular, and you're going to see them on all of the newer cars. Now we're going to move into aluminum wheels, which are far more common. This is going to be an aluminum alloy, which will be a mix of aluminum and nickel content. Now this here is a cast wheel. Cast is going to be the most common wheel found today, as they're fairly inexpensive to produce. Now, cast wheels are going to be a lot of different levels of quality, but basically the way a cast wheel is built is there is a mold for the wheel, and then the molten alloy is poured into the mold to come up with the shape of the wheel. Now this wheel, as you can see, the edge has been polished, but the middle of the wheel still has that cast raw finish. That's the way the cast wheel is going to look. There's lots of different levels of quality of casting. Your low quality cast wheels are going to be your very, very inexpensive wheels. A lot of those, the casting isn't very strong. They get a lot of air in the mold, and that can mean a very weak wheel, something you want to stay away from. When you find some of these wheels that are very, very low cost, that's usually why. Now, your OEM wheels won't have that problem. The casting is much, much better quality, and overall cast wheels are very reliable, and for most people will be perfectly fine. Again, just make sure you want to stick with name brands and get a solid wheel that's going to be safe on your car. So we talked about cast wheels. The next thing we're going to look at is going to be a flow-formed wheel. Now, flow-formed wheels are also sometimes called flow-forged, rotary forged. There's a lot of different names for them, but a lot of your higher-end manufacturers offer these because they're very strong wheels, but not quite the same price point as a true forged wheel. Now, a flow-formed wheel is going to start with the face being cast. Now, it's a higher pressure cast to make sure there's no air in it. It's a very high quality casting, but what they're going to do when they make the wheel is they're only going to cast about half the barrel. Then the wheel is going to be put in a machine where the rest of the barrel will be spun and stretched out. And what this is going to do is create a very, very strong wheel, but it's also going to be very light, far lighter than your normal cast wheel, and also much stronger. Now we're going to talk about forged wheels. Now, forged wheels are going to be your most expensive wheel because they're going to be your strongest and your lightest weight wheel. Now, the way a forged wheel is going to be built is you're going to start with a chunk of aluminum, anywhere from 80 to 100 pounds, and that is going to be forged and basically pressed into the shape of the wheel. That creates a very, very strong foundation. Now, that forged pressed wheel will go into a CNC machine and they'll get cut down over various stages to take that chunk into a solid wheel that's only going to weigh roughly about 20 pounds to 25 pounds for a 20-inch wheel. Now, because of that heavy forging process and the way these are built, it makes for extremely, extremely strong wheels, and they're also extremely light. You can compare it basically to the way a diamond's made. It starts off as coal, and once it gets compressed and heated, it turns into a diamond. The same thing with a forged wheel, and one of the reasons they cost about as much as diamonds do is it's the same process. The wheel is pressed and forged into place and then carefully machined, and you end up with a beautiful wheel that is extremely strong and extremely lightweight. Wheels are obviously the most popular way for you to modify your car, and there's thousands and thousands of options available between different colors, different styles, different looks, and obviously different materials. Basically, you can take what we taught you here, figure out which wheel is going to fit your vehicle the best, and then figure out what style wheel is going to be best for your application.